do what needs to be done.
The process of breaking the season for season 2, the fortunate thing for us was actually we had sown so many seeds from the first season, and a lot of what we were doing was just harvesting what we had planted.
Well, the first thing I heard about season 2 was before we shot season 1, when I first met Brian, and he pitched me or described to me a brief version of how he envisioned the first 4 seasons. So I had in my head kind of an idea of the overall trajectory.
With Brian Fuller, you sort of have to close your eyes and jump. He'll give you a sense of like, hey, you're gonna be around for a while, but you don't know what that means.
We had set so many things up, and the exciting thing was to see how they were all going to be coming to fruition. We set up Miriam Lass, we set up Abigail Hobbs, we set up a dynamic between Will and Hannibal that was one initially based on trust and became so intimate that it then blew apart after the betrayal.
I actually appreciate the role of being the keeper to the canon of Thomas Harris, and that's actually why I loved having Brian Fuller from the beginning, because he too shares that quest and that responsibility and that honor.
Whenever you're adapting someone's work, particularly something as canonized as Thomas Harris, there is a rabid fan base for the literature. So there was some concern about certain deviations that we were going to be taking.
That's what makes exciting viewing, that we can go in depth, taking a character and twisting it, you know, not doing the obvious, even though they'll appear in books later on. And there's no written rule that we have to stay with that. But, and I have to say that I do think Thomas is, even though he does know what's going on, he's been very, very honorable in trusting us. It's not just me, but trusting all of us in doing what we feel is quite a brilliant accomplishment.
The fun thing about adapting the Thomas Harris books is that there is such an enthusiastic fan base that we absolutely want to honor, and I see myself as very much a member of that community, being very loyal to the books and very respectful of the books. But also we are telling a different story, because at a certain point in the history, we changed a fundamental thing, which is Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter had no relationship in the literature.
I'm very careful about what I put into my body, which means I end up preparing most meals myself. A little protein scramble to start the day, some eggs, some sausage.
That's delicious, thank you.
There's always a little bit of this, both the enthusiasm of an actor getting ready to do something and then the enthusiasm of a fan who wants to know how the story turns out.
It's always a very fascinating way, I guess, of telling a story when the audience knows what the final point is going to be, and then you have a whole season to get there. So it's very exciting because you know a little bit of what's to come, but you don't know how it's going to happen. So yeah, that's all we knew, basically.
Will, what have you done?
I called Jack Crawford.
No. 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 Stay there.
He's a major character in the franchise, but I didn't know that it was going to be so much taken to heart. And people started saying like, oh my God, I actually like this guy when I'm not supposed to. And I kind of secretly loved that we were about to completely pull the rug out.
It hasn't been easy, and that's why it's fun to set up something as obnoxious as Children of the Peacock, and how he gets something that, you know, he's ripe for getting it.
One of the things that's great about Children getting shot in that episode is that it just tells you have no idea what the rules are in this world.
My first reaction when I read that he was going to be killed, I went, no, You can't kill him. But then, okay, you have a bit of a wink, but yet you want to, kind of implicate that it's, again, Hannibal, again, has masterfully set up somebody else to take the fall.
I'm as in the dark as the other viewers right now about how things may or may not work out. There might be a chance.
I remember in the writer's room when we were talking about this arc for Chilton in the first 7 episodes, we wanted very much to take advantage of Raul Esparza and write a quasi-comedic role in the show that gave us a different bit of energy from everyone else's very serious, brooding demeanor in the tone of the show.
Prosciutto roses, heart tartare, beef roulade. Whatever this is. Needless to say, I will not be eating the food.
I think they've used him beautifully, and personally, I hope he survives a gunshot to the head, but of course we won't know. It doesn't look hopeful.
It's important to recognize that you have to be absolutely categorically dead on this show before you can say for sure that you're dead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because I was expecting to go season 1, and I had read Red Dragon and knew that Bev Katz is mentioned in that book, so I knew from the get-go that there were going to be some liberties taken.
People have a habit of coming back, so that that applies to some characters and not to others.
But I think that that's what makes it fresh and interesting. That it doesn't follow exactly the way it plays out in the books, and that Brian Fuller did decide to change some of the male characters to female, and you just never know what to expect in every episode or every season. So I think that's part of what makes it so fresh.
Brian's loyalty to the source material is so strong, and his loyalty, I think, to the people that watch the show, that he's not looking to mess with them or just screw with the original material just to get a response. He's very careful about that.
Even though we were breaking some rules, we were breaking the canon of the literature, I felt like we were being true to our show and our interpretation of the Hannibal Lecter legacy. And that's only the beginning, because we're going to be breaking a lot more rules in season 3.
But it gives such a richness to the fans of the books, to Thomas Harris's writings, to the fans of the movies, that we honor the characters and we tell a bit of their tale. We get to do Mason Verger.
The conversations that I had with Michael Pitt were fantastic because he was so energized by the character and how offensive he was, and he has played psychopaths in the past and wanted to make sure that the character he was crafting on Hannibal was distinct from them, and I think he completely pulled it off and was so maniacal and inspired, and I couldn't take my eyes off of him.
They're going to find something wrong with your lady parts, Margot. Or so the record will state. The doctor will advise me that it's best if they take everything.
Obviously, Hannibal, the book, is motivated by Verger's thirst and his greed and his absolute dire need to have and pay for the return of Hannibal Lecter. So we kind of play with that, twist it a bit, and kind of set that up for season 3 as well.
We end season 2 on such a devastating place because we have 4 characters lying in their own blood, dying. And we have Hannibal Lecter dropping the mic and walking off stage in such a capacity that you wonder, like, where does he go from now, until you stay through the credits and you see where he's going from now.
We know that Hannibal is now out and about, and there's more than one entity that is motivated to pursue him and catch him, and that's obviously the FBI, potentially Will, depending on how he recuperates, if he recuperates, and Mason. And Mason's now in the situation that we meet him in the books.
In the writer's room, these novels are so heavily earmarked, and underlined, so that to play with it, to play with how we have seen it before, but twist it a bit. And it just even sets up Hannibal even better because he will eventually become incarcerated. We have to. But how everyone has been complicit in him getting behind bars.
You really don't know if you're going to survive him, do you?
On the show, we are very much Thomas Harris mashup DJs, and we're taking elements from different books, mixing and mashing them as we do our DJ work. And so we are going to be mashing up the novel Hannibal, continuing the Mason Verger story into season 3.
So that entire situation of paying people, whatever that form that would take, I think that could inform season 3 for sure.
As well as Hannibal Rising, and introducing a few characters from that novel that were pertinent to Hannibal's past, but we are completely reinventing Hannibal's origin story. It was set during World War II, and Mads Mikkelsen is a relatively young man. And B, to give the Hannibal of our story a very specific resonance that he may not have had in Hannibal Rising. We have on staff of Hannibal one of the best prosthetics departments working in Toronto, and it's led by Francois Dejanay, and he has a history with doing a lot with very little.
We were lucky in the beginning that Francois was available to us, because in looking at his work and ultimately the work, how it's projected up, the detail and just the translucence of skin, of I want to say the victims that we have, of that he has to create out of the materials that ultimately are plastic.
To have someone who is a maestro with flesh and blood and is able to take the elements that he's learned from working on movies like the Saw films and bring that body dysmorphia to Hannibal Lecter.
The talent and the artwork, because it's painting and it's creating. And the depths of it, because we flay angels, so you've got to go fillet after fillet after fillet, and the layer of bone, the layer of flesh, the layer of muscle, and under the muscle, and then the organs. It's perfection.
From the moment you know what's in the script, you start thinking. The more information you get at your meeting, you either alter the way you're thinking or you keep going in that direction.
We are constantly turning people inside out. We are sewing them together. We are flaying them in very specific ways. And so you need somebody who has a vast knowledge of all sorts of practical prosthetic effects and not just one avenue.
We have some ideas of what we'll have to do. And usually because of the show, we're thinking bodies, gore, blood, stuff like that. And the nice thing about it is that it's not just gore, it's a little bit of, a little bit more than that, which is fun for us.
This is a little bit tricky piece to build, simply because we weren't exactly sure of what we needed and wanted. We had certain designs given to us, and we started building it. And as we were building it, Brian came in and saw it, and the designs somewhat took a slight change. Instead of covering all the bones and everything, we left them exposed because he liked the aspect of it being all bones when the man works with bones all the time.
Francois is very integral to the production process because we get in with him in meetings very early on in the process. We talk about a concept, and Francois, because being somebody who recreates bodies all the time, knows how those bodies work.
He's a victim that we find in the hospital room, and he presented a little bit more of a challenge simply because of the way he was supposed to be. He wasn't just a body laying down on a table or on a bed. He was actually suspended, and he had to be suspended in a very specific position. So he's actually a static body. So he doesn't move, there's no joints in him or anything. He's just that position, and that's it.
So we have these wonderful, disturbing meetings where Francois will tell us, well, the body would actually do this in that circumstance. And then we'll say, oh, okay, that's great, because then if the body is reacting that way, then we'll turn it this way, and that actually becomes part of the story.
So we have the judge over here. The judge was part of a tableau. It was representation, you know, brain in one hand, heart in the other. And this one here, we wanted to use the actor, but it became quite evident. We were going to do green screen cap and all this stuff, but it became evident that it was going to be a little bit of a task for him to be in that position and suspended and all this stuff. So we, at the last minute, decided to go ahead and do a fake head of the actor and throw it on a body that we already had in his existing body.
So we have perfection, and he delivers perfection on a schedule that is insane. And it's almost as if he's just finished one, another script is given to him with an audacious splay of character again.
You can try to be ready as much as you can, but until you get the script, and until you see what's written in there, and until you get an explanation of who wrote it, of what it is that they really want, you can't plan in advance. So again, this is that moment where you're in your meeting and you get all the information required, and then you run back and start as soon as you can.
It's a tremendous amount of work to do on a television schedule. It's ridiculous.
Once you start the show, it's like you're falling and rolling, and it's just the speed picks up till it's over. You know what I mean?
I don't know how they get it done, because they're not given enough time to do it the way he would like to do it. And every single time it comes out looking just incredible.
Because he only has like 8 days to prepare for each next episode, and it is very much the Indiana Jones boulder that is right at his heels. And if he slips, it'll crush him.
We're actually making stuff from nothing. So it takes a little bit more time. If we can alter something that's already made, all the better. But most of the time, we can't do that because everything is written specifically for that episode.
Well, this is our next victim for the following episode, the one that's coming up. And what we're doing here is we're going to create a burnt body, and it will have to do a few different things. Right now, we're reusing the Beverly body, since we will not recognize the person. That was the closest to the body size of the actress that we're doing. This is a burn scene and an aftermath. So we're making a body that's going to be seen in the morgue as a crispy, burnt body. And then we're also going to take this body and turn it into a tableau for the following day.
He goes out of his way and works long, tireless hours to deliver what he does to the screen.
He makes it happen. You know, it's never, I can't, it is, I can do it. How great.
What are you feeding my dogs?
Just me.
Even something as horrifying as Mason Verger tearing off of his face, not tearing off, like cutting in chunks to feed to the dogs, is such a complicated process.
Again, this is the time factor is always an issue. So with the amount of time we did, we decided to do it one way. So we pushed out his teeth, so we gave him dentures that fit on his face. We took his face and put it back as a prosthetic over his own face, and then, you know, did the piece on that, like did the actual makeup in terms of when you actually dug into his skin, you saw his teeth, so it gave the illusion that it was deep.
Because you have all of this rigging with blood tubes, you're getting something off the face that has to be edible for the dogs, so you can do it all in one take.
So that was achieved with prosthetic. He had a prosthetic mask on. However, like all prosthetics, they have to be built out from the face.
You can't add things, even as good as the illusion is, you can't add a bunch of thickness to a face and make it look thin again without these guys' help.
We cut everything in. We shrunk the prosthetic down so it just looks like it's built in. It's part of his face.
The other thing was that with that prosthetic and the mouthpiece that he had to wear, he had very limited articulation. So he couldn't really speak. It was almost like a very complicated, very nice-looking Halloween mask that was on top. So we actually had to animate every line that he said during those 2 scenes.
I'm hungry.
Eat your nose in.
In the scene, he also cuts off the tip of his own nose. And for that, we had to create a new 3D nose for him to cut through with a knife which had no blade in it. And then we created the blade, the blood, and the tip of his nose in order to see it fall away.
And that's also the way you shoot it, right? If you didn't have any CG, if you didn't have the money to go that route or whatever, we would have to do something that it would have to work. But with that element, it's again, they can take his face, they can put it back on his prosthetic. It's just, there's all kinds of stuff they could do. So it makes us look really good in a way.
There's so much knowledge that goes into preparing any of these single shots that it's hard to pick a single favorite, but I do love the face-off. I do love Mason Verger's face-off.
It puts us in that world. It creates an extra reality that is extraordinary. I know it's fake, but in the moment it doesn't feel fake, and it just helps you as an actor to completely believe in this fantasy you're creating.
It's interesting. I think Scott and I, when we first, the first couple episodes of season 1, we would actually like dread to go in because it looked so real and haunting. We were like, oh, how are we going to do this scene? And now we kind of bolt out of our trailers and are looking like ready to see what his next piece of art is.
I know it sounds horrible, but we're thrilled with what they have for us, yeah.
There are some times where I have my hand in some sort of dead body and it's actually the actor with a false bottom or something, and I've forgotten that, and he'll like do something like that and we'll freak out.
She has a heartbeat.
What? Because we're just like, oh, right, this one was real. I forgot that this is a real guy in this scene. This isn't one of the mannequins that looks exactly like a real guy.
And there have been plenty of times watching the show where I have had to jump up from the sofa and run around the room going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, that's so disgusting. I can't believe they did that. I can't believe. The guy with the skin and the sewing and the ripping of the skin, I was like, Jesus Christ.
I watched that episode and I still shake my head at how we got away with that much flesh tearing and that much disturbing cinema.
When I go home and my everybody's Cuban and they're all like, we can't watch this is so bloody. The element even on set, which sometimes you're so aware of how fake things are. In this case, you're so aware of how fake they're not.
We get comments while people watch it during the week, and I get a text. It was like, oh my God, you know, stuff like that. So you know you're doing a good job.
Francois makes it all feel real and grounded in a way, and I don't feel like I'm looking at a prosthetic.
He's an artist, you know, he's really dedicated and committed to what he does, and his standards are so high. And I mean, of course, Brian those are the kind of people that he chooses to work with. He only wants the best.
So in talking about Hannibal's style and how we are telling the epic television story, it's quite different from the other movies.
We were wanting to have a new approach to Hannibal, not one that was necessarily established in the public's mind that's already been seen through previous incarnations of the subject matter.
Obviously, in 2 of 3, we have he's behind bars. And in the third one, Hannibal, we had made a deal with Gucci, so they were supplying the suits, and we had other suits from several other designers. But never did we have a design for Hannibal Lecter, handmade suits.
Particularly because of Mads, who was our lead for Hannibal. It was not hard to go in a certain direction with him because pretty much anything you do with him would look good. He would make it work.
Mads, his physique, just wears them so well. Best dressed man, I think, on earth.
Every time I would see Mads dressed, it would always be like looking at a Christmas present or something like that, because what he added to the clothing, it was like a small bit of magic every time. He just brought those clothes to life that were just formerly sitting on a hanger.
I think every single suit, tie, shirt, socks, shoes that Hannibal Lecter wears is what Brian Fuller would like to wear.
Brian has an exceptionally beautiful eye for elegant pieces, whether it's furniture or art or what have you. There's an aesthetic with him that is exquisite. So I'm not really sure which came first. It's a chicken or the egg question.
Hannibal style-wise, for me, I felt that he had to be as distinct as his legacy, and as somebody who loves a good plaid suit, I wanted to see him in waistcoats and matching jacket and trousers, and to have a fantastic silhouette.
We definitely wanted him to have some kind of a European heritage, undefined, and very sort of classically refined, elegant, intelligent, gourmet, total Renaissance man, basically.
And we've seen him in 2 seasons now, immaculately dressed. And I think that is because Christopher Hargaton comes in and feels the same way about the character as I do. He wants to have as many varieties of plaid suits as we can get our hands on, but he also wants to keep them distinct in their way, and he color coordinates to scripts and to tones to what Hannibal is wearing.
I just started playing around with fabrics and silhouettes and textures, and eventually it sort of gave birth to itself.
And we spend the money on the quality of the fabrics, the cashmere, hardly a cashmere blend, a cashmere, cashmere suits.
Hello, Frederick. Oh my God.
The clear suit came from the script. I knew that I wanted Hannibal Lecter to look as amazing as he does in his office when he's murdering somebody, but he can't realistically do that because he would get blood all over his nice suits.
His kill suit, we call it. Because the first time you saw it, you know he had to be covered up. How does he never leave any evidence behind? So he needed something.
So to give him this clear plastic suit that was, a little nod to Dr. No in a way, I think that was probably kicking around my head when I was writing it, but it felt like it was a way to give us a window into who he is outside with the clear, dangerous transparency of that protective shell.
But when you see it appear again and again, always over a 3-piece suit, that's outrageous.
The actual suit, when things happen quickly like that, you have to kind of take an expedient route to getting the thing done. And I think what I did was I bought some kind of a plastic utility suit. I don't know what it was. Tried it on mess, pinned it, and then revamped the style a little bit with the stand collar and that type of thing, and also the different type of plastic to give it some kind of allure. And I know in one episode where he's climbing the silo and there's the wheat field behind, the way they shot that thing made me very happy.
It plasticizes a bit his character. It's almost like the man who fell to earth, the way Maz plays it. So it's a character.
Not everybody can pull off that plastic suit.
Well, he is in a category unto himself. I find that all the characters in the show are very distinct. Unlike other projects I've worked on in the past, there doesn't seem to be a lot of overlap between the women or between the male characters.
I love working with Christopher because he's patient and funny, but has such a great eye.
Christopher has a particularly interesting eye for fabrics and textures and what the weight of something that you wear conveys.
I trust him implicitly, but I also love the fact that he wants to hear what you think, and he will take the time to hone down.
Part of what we've chosen to wear, for instance, with Chilton this season, because we were in double-breasted suits the first season, which I hate. They make me feel like a skis ball, and that's why he said, well, then you should wear it. And part of the choice this season was to move away from that a little bit, and we ended up in these blazers that every time I'd put something on, I'm like, Brian's gonna love this, because they were very much the kind of thing Brian would wear.
What was interesting to me in this season was that switch when I always thought of it as a onesie, the prison suit.
I'd be lying if I said it didn't make things easier, because, and in a funny way, Hugh was, when we started to dress him again in clothes, he said that in a way, he kind of missed the prison uniform, because it's almost reassuring to go to work and just know what you're putting on every day instead of having to think about, what would be appropriate.
And then kind of gets groomed, essentially, and emerges in Hannibal's office saying, I'd like to resume my therapy. And for me, the pitfall there was not to be just a mini Hannibal, to be like, you know, the bad version of that scene was to show up in a three-piece suit, you know. And again, Chris, through a few conversations, we hunted out, and you know, he helped me feel that we could show that little shift without being too on the nose about it.
His character did not have a complicated wardrobe. I think actors can get bored, and initially when we started out, I think he foresaw himself wearing probably one or two things constantly throughout the entire season, but it's my experience that people, after the third week of wearing the same thing, really need to mix it up a little bit. And the way you accomplish that with someone like Will is you just have very similar looking things. So there is some variation going on, and it doesn't become boring. Also, for the viewer on a subliminal level, it can be kind of monotonous to keep seeing exactly the same thing over and over again.
Not to put too fine a point on it, I'm basically picky when it comes to costumes. It takes me a long time of casting things off before I kind of hone in on something, and particularly with a character like Will, you know, there's so many pitfalls, right? He shouldn't be, I don't want him to be like a professor, I don't want him to look like just a schlubby guy. There's a lot of pitfalls along the way. And Chris is great at providing focus to your slightly hazy thoughts. You know you've got something that you want to achieve, but you can't quite get to it, and he shows you a few options. You're like, yeah, that's what I meant.
I appreciate actors who are into their character and getting it right, and I can't say there's anybody better than Hugh to work with on that level. So, you know, I don't mind if people want to dig deeper. That's what I'm there for.
I've always admired teachers molding impressionable young minds, but you can only learn so much and live.
No one likes a know-it-all, Freddie.
The starting base with these two is really great because they're actually very easy women to dress. They're also very open to pretty much any kind of experimentation.
Well, I know it was very important to Brian that Alana had patterns, prints, colors that she stood out in this world of darkness.
It's not often in film or television that I have had the opportunity to go nuts with graphic prints. I like graphic designs and I love color, but it's usually kept to a certain minimum, whereas with Alana, Brian Fuller really wanted her to be in these rather exuberant, expressive prints. He just really liked them on her.
So every time we're trying something on and it's lacking a little bit of pop, we know that Brian's not going to approve it.
So the key to her was keeping her silhouette complementary to her nice figure, and also trying to apply the prints to the proper context, because different scenes emotively have different significance. So you don't want her to be wearing something super bold if she's, you know, weeping or something like that.
So I think it's really important for her to keep her femininity without losing her strength.
One of the great things about the show is the attention to detail, and every single piece is chosen for a reason. Nothing's just, you know, done for convenience sake.
Well, Beverly's costuming, I mean, the three musketeers, as we call them, that worked in the lab, their costuming was probably the simplest of all of the characters on the show.
She's either in the lab or out in the field, so, you know, I probably had a dozen pairs of the same black slacks.
Her silhouette was close and tight. She wore color, but, you know, often the pants or trousers would be dark and very, you know, nice fit.
Yeah, and tell Sandra to give me a call, will you? Thank you.
Freddie's outfits are to die for.
How was my funeral?
When we first met back in season 1 with Chris and Brian, we had talked about the idea of armor, so that her costume and her hair, and actually her makeup is quite subdued, but her hair and her clothes are very much a armor with which she combats the world, essentially.
Lara Jean, I have to say, the Freddie character is just so, to me, she's almost like a graphic comic character.
She really puts on an outward appearance to hide kind of what's going on inside.
With her, I had a lot of fun. I would always think thematically in terms of Freddie.
There's one outfit when she interviews Will at her hotel in episode 10, which actually, you don't really get a full look at it, but it's actually quite subdued outfit. She's in just black pants, which upon inspection do have a reptile print in them, but they are plain black, and I think a burgundy top and a blue top over top of that, very, very subdued, and that kind of shows her at her most comfortable. And I think Chris does a good job of reflecting that, because in that particular scene, I also admit to still caring about Abigail and essentially being out for justice over anything else.
Do you really think Dr. Chilton killed Abigail Hobbs? I don't. Even if I let this story go, I will never let that go.
So she was often thematic, and you could really play with her, and people seemed to encourage it. So I was always looking for those possibilities.
It's a back and forth, and it's a lovely collaboration. He's very good, but ultimately there's nothing he brings in that I don't like. He's really good.
The way that we are dressed and carry ourselves tells so much about the character. Because for me, from the second you put the shoes on all the way up to the shirt and tie that you're wearing, that tells you what kind of a person it is.
And I'm very excited about what Christopher will do with Hannibal in season 3 now that he is a fugitive and he is wild and crazy.
Overall, the production, the vision of the production comes from Brian. He was one of the best people I've worked with as far as a visionary for a show, because he never had any doubt in or hesitation for 1 minute about anything, if he liked it or didn't like it.
And that's Brian Fuller. I mean, that's why I loved him from the beginning, because he wanted to make something that he would sit down and watch and appreciate. So you know you're getting really a special attention to quality and differentness.